The clerk found a note taped to the register that read, "Don't trust the next customer." I blinked at it, my reflection wobbly in the smudged glass of the counter. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, their harsh white glow making the paint on the walls look yellowed and tired. The hum of the register's old motor beneath my fingers was oddly loud in the quiet store. A draft crept along the linoleum floor, carrying the faint, sour smell of spilled energy drinks from aisle 3. I looked around. The aisles were empty. The snack racks sagged with their wrappers and cans, and the refrigerated cases hissed softly as frost built along the edges. The door jingled, a sound so sharp it made me flinch, though I hadn't seen anyone approach. I shook my head. Prank, obviously. One of the delivery guys, maybe. My pulse slowed, though not entirely. I had worked this shift for months, nights when the town seemed to sleep so hard that even the streetlights looked abandoned. The thought of someone slipping in unnoticed made the hairs along my forearms twitch. The first customer of the evening came in, or maybe the next customer, the one the note warned about. The door swung open with a soft whoosh, and I felt it before I saw them. The air changed. It smelled faintly metallic, like copper mixed with damp wool. I glanced up. He was tall, wearing a long coat that seemed slightly too heavy for the mild February night. His face was partly obscured by a hood, but the little I could see made me uncomfortable. The way his eyes caught the light, sharp and patient. He didn't speak at first. He just stood near the doorway, one hand brushing against the edge of the display of bottled water, as if checking its balance. Hi," I said. My voice sounded hollow in the store. He didn't answer. He tilted his head slightly, the hood falling back just enough for me to see a pale cheek, a stubble jaw. The silence stretched. The fluorescent light flickered overhead, once, twice, before stabilizing. My stomach tightened. "Can I help you find something?" I asked again. He nodded, slow, deliberate. He wandered through the aisles, deliberately slow, his boots making soft, wet-sounding taps against the vinyl. The sound echoed unnaturally in the empty space. I realized then that the door had shut quietly behind him. No jingling. I hadn't seen him touch it. He stopped at the far end of the candy aisle, turned, and looked straight at me. For a moment, his gaze felt heavier than gravity. Then he smiled, a quick, almost imperceptible flick of lips that didn't reach his eyes. I turned back to the register, my hands hovering over the keys. I tried to tell myself it was paranoia. The note, someone's idea of a joke. Maybe even something I'd subconsciously left for myself, a prank to break the monotony of night shifts. But the hair on my neck stayed rigid. He came to the counter finally, moving with a slow, deliberate gait. When he placed his items, a single bottle of water, a packet of gum, on the counter, I noticed the hands were slightly too long, fingers bending at angles that seemed wrong, yet not grotesque enough to be immediately noticeable. I rang them up, the buttons clicking sharply, almost deafening in the stillness. He didn't speak, just watched, unmoving, his eyes following each motion. The register hummed beneath my fingers, louder than before. I felt my pulse in my throat. "Cash or card?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. "Cash," he said finally, the words low and smooth, but with a resonance that made them linger in the space longer than normal. I opened the till, hands trembling slightly. Coins clinked. Paper bills rustled. He watched, tilting his head like he could sense my thoughts. My hands felt sticky, though I was certain I'd washed them before the shift. The note's words burned in my mind. Don't trust him. Don't trust him. I placed the bills and coins in the drawer. He extended his hand, palm up, waiting. I froze. I wanted to hand him the change, but some part of me didn't want to look away. His gaze held me in place, hypnotic, assessing. Finally, I pushed the coins across the counter. They rattled unnaturally, louder than they should have. He caught them with fingers that seemed impossibly smooth, yet rigid. The click of each coin hitting the counter after his touch lingered in the air like a threat. He nodded once, then left. The door barely made a sound, just a soft sigh, like the exhale of a person who'd been holding their breath for hours. I watched him disappear into the night. My hands shook as I straightened the note on the register. I laughed nervously to myself. He was just a customer. Nothing more. But then I noticed the reflection in the glass of the door. He was still there, standing in the street, looking back at the store, though the door had been closed. He raised a hand slowly, almost lazily, and tapped the side of his face with a long finger, the motion deliberate, pointed. I blinked, but he didn't move. The streetlight above him flickered, then went out, leaving him in shadow. When the light returned a second later, he was gone. No footsteps, no tire marks, no sign of movement in the asphalt puddles reflecting the neon from the 7-Eleven sign across the street. I exhaled, shakily, trying to convince myself it was a trick of the light, a shadow, my imagination. But the note remained, stark and yellowed with age or perhaps with worry, taped to the register. Don't trust the next customer. And behind me, the register hummed louder than it had ever done before. I turned slowly. The aisles were empty, yet I felt it again, the weight of a gaze pressing from somewhere unseen. I spun, flashlight from my phone in one hand, fingers brushing the shelves. Nothing. Just the hum of the fridge, the buzz of the lights, the slight vibration under the linoleum, as though the building itself were holding its breath. Then I saw it. The reflection. Not in the door, not in the glass, but in the little chrome strip that ran along the edge of the counter. A pale, hooded figure standing behind me. Its face was partially shadowed, but the smile, small, deliberate, was unmistakable. I spun fully, empty. The hairs on my neck stood on end. My stomach sank. And in the quiet, I realized. The note hadn't warned me about the man who left. It had warned me about the one still here. A woman entered the store holding a photograph of the clerk, but taken years before they were born. I noticed her as soon as the door jingled, the sound too crisp against the low hum of the fluorescent lights. It was past midnight, and the store felt like a tomb of lingering heat from the day and cold from the open fridges. The linoleum creaked under my boots as I walked to the counter, my shadow stretching long across the empty aisles. She was small, almost fragile, with hair pinned loosely at the nape of her neck. Her coat smelled faintly of damp wool and something metallic, like the tang of pennies left in water too long. But it was the photograph that held my attention. I could see the edges of it curling slightly, and the image inside was startling in its precision. A boy who looked exactly like me, though I hadn't been born when it was supposedly taken. I froze, my fingers hovering over the register. The hum of the fluorescent lights above buzzed in time with my heartbeat. The store was silent except for the soft hiss of the fridges, the occasional drip from the air conditioner, and the faint groan of the linoleum expanding under the heat of the night. "Can I help you?" My voice sounded smaller than usual, like it belonged to someone else. She didn't answer right away. She placed the photograph on the counter carefully, fingertips brushing the edges as if it were fragile glass. Then she met my eyes. There was a weight there, something that made me feel exposed, as if she could peer inside my skull and read each memory, each secret. I started, and my words caught in my throat. "Where did you?" She tilted her head, and her lips moved in a soundless hum. Then she spoke, quietly, almost a whisper. "You remember this, don't you?" I blinked. The photograph, the boy, it was me. My hair cut short in the sun, a faint freckle across my left cheek. My mother's smile behind the camera, though I had never seen this picture, nor had I known it existed. The date scribbled on the back made my stomach seize. 1984. I wasn't born until 1992. The fluorescent light above flickered, once, twice, before stabilizing. The hum of the lights seemed louder now, sharper, as if the room itself were holding its breath. My eyes flicked around the empty store. A display of chips sagged under the weight of cans and wrappers. The cold air from the fridge brushed against my face, sharp and unrelenting. Reflections in the glass doors wavered, showing not just me but a faint shimmer behind me, like a shadow I didn't cast. She smiled then, a small, careful smile, and I felt it in my chest, cold and hollow. "You know what this is," she said. "I didn't take it, but I had to find you." I shook my head, trying to dismiss the creeping dread. "I don't know what you mean. That's impossible. That's not me." Her eyes didn't waver. She set the photograph down again and pressed it flat against the counter. The edges caught the light, and for a moment I swore I saw my reflection blink back before I did. The hum of the fluorescent tubes pitched higher, and I realized I could hear every small sound in the store. The click of a bottle cap falling, the rustle of a snack bag in the next aisle, the distant hum of traffic outside, a lone car moving like a ghost. "Impossible things happen," she said softly, almost reverently. "Time is lenient." I felt my knees weaken. The words made no sense, yet every nerve in my body screamed that they were true. My hand reached for the photograph, almost involuntarily, and the moment my fingers brushed it, the air seemed to pulse. A shiver ran up my spine, a sensation like static crawling under my skin. She leaned closer, and I could feel the faint scent of rust and wool more strongly now. Her voice, barely audible, brushed my ear. "It's not a memory, it's a warning." The lights flickered violently this time, throwing the store into uneven shadows. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw the boy in the photograph step forward, emerging from the printed paper into the dim light of the store. Then the lights stuttered back on, and the image on the counter was just paper again. My heart raced. "I don't understand," I whispered, voice cracking. The cold air from the fridge pressed harder, and I noticed my reflection again, shifting slightly. Eyes a little older, a faint line at the corner of my mouth I hadn't yet earned, and behind me, the shimmer of a shape I couldn't place. "You will," she said. She picked up the photograph and tucked it inside her coat, careful, precise. Then she left. The door swung shut behind her, the bell giving a lonely, hollow chime. I ran to the window, pressed my hand against the glass, but the street was empty. The light of the street lamps reflected in the puddles on the asphalt, but there was no sign of her. No footprints in the thin layer of frost on the sidewalk. Just the faint ripple where the puddle met the curb, like a breath that had left the night behind. I turned back to the store. The fluorescent hum was different now, lower, almost throbbing. The fridges hissed, and I noticed the photograph she had left behind. Or had I imagined it? I swore for a second that it lay flat on the counter, a small, trembling weight. But when I reached for it, there was nothing. Only the faint impression of a hand in the dust on the countertop, too precise, too deliberate. The shadows seemed to twist around the aisles. The empty snack racks reflected the lights oddly, the linoleum creaking under a weight I couldn't place. I felt eyes on me, but when I turned, the store was empty. I checked the door again, locked as it always was when I closed at night. And then I saw it, reflected faintly in the glass of the fridge door. A boy standing behind me. My own face, exactly as in the photograph, eyes wide and pale, staring. But when I spun around, the aisle was empty, cold air brushing my neck, the hum of the lights steady again. I sank behind the counter, trying to catch my breath. My reflection in the polished surface looked normal enough, too normal. But the photograph had been real. The woman had been real. And I knew, somehow, that I hadn't seen the last of either of them. Somewhere, in the hum of the fluorescent lights and the hiss of the fridges, the photograph waited. And behind it, the boy, myself, or someone like me, was still there, patient, waiting beyond the bounds of time, watching. The night stretched on.